This is Devin with Writing Daily. I'm told that I'm supposed to put out things so you guys know ahead of time that I'll be here, but I'm still getting used to this whole marketing thing, but I'm doing the best that I can. And we are here with Writing Daily, where every day I get online and I talk about things to improve your writing, things to kick around, how to market yourself better, how to promote yourself, how to put yourself out there. That's what I'm doing right now. For those who don't know, my name is Devin Galaudet. I'm the editor-in-chief of In the Know Traveler and the author of 10,000 Miles with My Dead Father's Ashes, which is coming out September 18th, just in 4 months. Dro, Dave, Bruce, Alma was one of the people that I had the pleasure of studying with. So today, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about what's at stake for your character. What's at stake for your character? It's incredibly important because I think what ends up happening, and by the way, this is largely a fiction issue, but I think probably on a bigger level, this is something that you can also use in nonfiction work. I'll explain that a little bit later today. But as always, if I'm on the right track, please consider hitting the like button or the wow button or ask a question, because we're all writers here and we're hopefully getting better at doing our craft. So what's at stake for our writers? Let me back up a little bit, because what ends up happening is I've done a number of things where I've had book club's not the right word, a writer's group. So I'm in a writer's group, and I've been in writer's groups of varying kinds, whether it was in my MFA program or just in my personal life, and the writing is fine. The dialogue is good. Like, everything is clear. Like, I'm in the room and I'm present with whomever is, whatever the scene is going on. I'm there. Like, I understand precisely what's going on, and there's something missing. And more often than not, there is something missing that drives me to want to turn the page. And so what's the biggest thing? I want to know what's at stake for the character or the narrator or somebody. I want to know that there's something on the line that the character cares about, probably a great deal. So what I've put together today is a handful of little notes to kind of talk about a little bit. So if you are writing sort of that dramatic, and it doesn't necessarily have to be dramatic, I just need to know what's happening for the character, and I think this is true across the board. And Bruce, I'm glad that you hung around for this today. So the main question that we have for our writing today is, what is at stake? And I think probably one of the best ways to get that thing going is by finding out what is your character's hard decision. Now, the hard decision can be a whole variety of things. It can be a moral dilemma. It could just be like, I have no money and I have to pay my gas bill. And it really doesn't necessarily matter what direction you go, as long as that we know that the character is going through something that is important to them. As a matter of fact, I had another teacher suggest that if you're writing a short story, really it's only valid if it is one of the worst 5 days of that character's life. That's the thing that will keep us reading a short story, because we need to get straight to the point. What is the problem that this character has to deal with? What's at stake? What that character has to overcome? Don Jackson, hey, how are you? We know that there's a problem, but how do we get to the point of the problem, or how do we start exploring the problem as writers where it becomes a juicier thing for our readers? So here are some of the things that I've done, and I've certainly read many times in books and have done my best to articulate it. Is one of the first things is that there's something bad going on, and our character is trying to be good. They're trying to do the opposite of what's in front of them. Like, everybody may say, hey, let's pick on that character that everybody historically makes fun of for one of 10,000 reasons, and we want this character to join in on all the fun it is to pick on another person. And so there's an obvious moral dilemma for our character do they join in on being abusive, or do they take a stand and perhaps invite in their own abuse from those same group of friends, so to speak? Another way something to bring it in is something that is a very human problem. In other words, the kinds of things that we all deal with. Money, food, shelter are big ones, but so are things like having big expectations or even reasonable expectations. In other words, the kinds of things that I would argue might be a social justice issue, something where it is reasonable to want to, let's say, to defend the person who's getting picked on, and for some reason we don't, for one reason or another. Robert, thank you for joining us. So that's point two. Here's another one that is kind of like an outside of the box kind of thing, but if we're talking about hard decision, one of the things that really gets it to be a page turner is to add, we kind of put our character in a position of success only to drop them far lower than what they could have imagined or what we as the readers were expecting. So I call this raise them up and drop them low. And I think this is something you can also find in your own, like as somebody who writes memoir, I think this is just really like, remember that time where you almost got the most beautiful girl in high school to go out with you, and then at the last second she dumps you for the football star. That actually never happened to me. The one girl I asked out on a date for the prom just said no. So here we are, me disheveled. So what's the next thing that we can offer that would probably be a good thing is, and this is perhaps one of the things that I think is one of the strongest directions to go. Deanna, hello, is that if the character has a moral dilemma or has some sort of a problem that we can get behind, one of the best things that I believe that you can do is allow the reader to have more information than your character does. In other words, we can foreshadow some sort of extra dilemma. In other words, let's say, Larry wants to ask the beautiful cheerleader to the high school prom, and little does Larry know, not only is she going to say no, but she is dating his best friend behind his back. And the best friend isn't telling him. And so Larry's going to have this moral dilemma of even asking her. And when he does, we're waiting, ratcheted up with tension of all the things that are about to go wrong. And we know well in advance. As a matter of fact, moreover, when we have characters in these kinds of situations, this would be the moment that I would suggest that we really slow down. This would be the moment where, the girl is at the other side of the room and Larry is walking over to her, and we have an internal monologue of what's going to happen, how he's practicing his line, how he has the flowers that he's about to give her behind his back, and we know that it's going to be a disaster. And so we slow down as much as possible to allow our readers to really kind of sink their teeth into the moment, but as well as allow us to kind of really dive into the sympathy and rooting for the best possible outcome for our poor protagonist. So to go over those really quickly, this is what we're talking about when we are talking about what's at stake. We want to get your character to make a hard decision, something that is going to be challenging for them. We want them to be going after and trying to be the good person. We want them to have a human experience or problem. We want them to raise them up high and drop them low. And readers know more than what your character does. So as always, if you like what I'm doing, please hit the like button. Please consider sharing. Join me on iTunes or at devingallaudet.com/dad. That is going to be all about my upcoming book. And of course, visit In the Know Traveler just for laughs, because travel is one of the greatest things in the whole world. Kelly, Jody, Mimi, thank you so much for joining me. And again, writing daily. I'm going to do this tomorrow because that's what we do. We write daily so we can finish our books, we can work on our novels, we can finish our screenplays, our short stories, and write poetry. So thanks so much for being here, and I'm going to be back here again tomorrow. And by the way, last final thing is, if you guys have a question, please throw it down here, because then I may have a future show about your question in the future, and I might even be less disheveled tomorrow. Thanks so much for joining me.